Hans, have you ever seen that famous clip of like the best way to end a movie ever?
No.
Hold on, I can find it. Yes, okay, here it is. The proper way to end your film. It's a 23-second YouTube clip.
Okay.
You might have seen this already. This gets passed around in the types of circles that you and I both frequent.
Okay.
The freeze frame in the credits. Wow.
So this is from a 1985 Filipino action film titled Blood Debts. Also apparently sometimes goes by the name Eliminator. This has been so hard to find, but I finally the best version I could actually find is on YouTube.
That 30-second clip is
Fantastic.
better than anything in Force of Execution.
We better be recording. Oh, Steven Seagal movie mentioned.
Yeah.
Wait, I love the Wikipedia page for Blood Debts. There's a section just titled Internet Popularity. The film ends very abruptly with the credits rolling before the rocket explosion finishes or Bill's body parts hit the ground, with both actors substituted with obvious and crude stunt mannequins. Simultaneously, upbeat stock music is played over the scene in the credits, contrasting with the sour tone of the on-screen text describing Mark's fates. I mean, that's certainly one way to put it.
I mean, I haven't ever seen this before, but this is a
Just for some reason, I don't know what it is, but sometimes reading very literal descriptions of like very silly things is just like the funniest thing possible.
Well, you remember which one was it that we did that for? Was it Belly of the Beast? Where you read out loud the description of the final fight scene and it makes you think you're having a stroke.
But that one was weird because it was like
It's like John
he
Tapon,
kills
wasn't
him,
it?
snapping his neck, throwing
Killing
him into a
him.
wall, which kills him, and does this, which kills. Yes,
Was that
I
Belly of the
completely-
Beast?
I think that had to be.
Yeah, that was Belly of the Beast.
Yeah, here it is. Jake kills John Tapon by disarming him and breaking his neck. He returns downstairs, which is now full of dead bodies. Somebody fixed it! What?
Oh,
We got a
Well,
listener.
well, thank God. we have
What?
This eternal archive of how it was originally written.
No, you gotta check the.
I'm looking at the
metadata on
history
that.
now.
Oh,
Is it? Was this the last edit? The last edit is,
It has
well,
to
it was
be.
fun while it lasted. Sorry for the running joke. That has to be. Hold on.
Who was that? We have a new listener.
Is it? It doesn't. Can I compare? I don't. Wikipedia's thing is rough.
yeah.
Compare selected versions. Yeah, that was it. Jake kills John Tapon by disarming him and breaking his neck, killing him. He ends the fight by throwing John Tapon in a display cabinet, which crushes his spine, killing him. Jake breaks John Tapon's neck by throwing him, which kills him, killing John Tapon.
Jesus.
Someone took it out. Who took it out?
A coward.
Check the date on that.
2nd of September, 2023.
Wait, when did our episode go live? Belly of the Beast went up July 11th.
It's been a while.
So 2 months later.
2 months later, we could have had an effect on the world.
Our
Our first measurable effect on the world.
I don't have a username, but I have an IP address. This IP address
hoping for.
comes from Poland?
Okay. Wait, hold on. Hold up. Hold the freaking forts.
Is that like a...
Analytics.
Is it a VPN kind of deal?
No, Wikipedia actually gets mad if you try to edit it with a VPN.
Wait, really? I didn't know that. See, look at this. I have a white page up, and look, my camera's garbage. I don't know what to do about that. I'll have to figure it out.
Okay, wait. We have... Whenever I look at the all-time data range of our analytics, we have, I am not exaggerating, 1 download in Poland.
You're joking.
I'm not. I wish I was. I wish I was that funny to come up with that as a joke.
I'm claiming we did that. That's the first measurable
So
effect.
we have
Out of the world.
1 Polish listener.
And they went in and fixed the Wikipedia article that made no sense.
That is so wild.
I can't. That's
our one
such
faithful Polish listener. Thank you so much for listening.
Such an insane coincidence.
You didn't have to edit that page. It could have stayed the way it was. That wasn't a criticism.
It should have stayed. Hans, can you change it back to the way it was before?
I feel like that would. I feel like it's funnier if we don't. If this was indeed us.
I want to have like a fun repartee with our one Polish listener.
Oh my god.
Our rival. We shall battle it out to the end.
That's I can't. That seems like such a coincidence. It can't be. That's insane.
There's no way.
I love it. If you're if you're genuinely actually out there listening to our garbage podcast where we talk about garbage movies, including garbage human being Steven Seagal, thank you so much.
If you're so inspired by this to edit a Wikipedia page, I literally cannot think of an honor higher than that.
We make no money from this. I just wanted the listeners to understand that. You have never heard an ad on this show.
Yet. Yeah, that's... Okay, here. Call to action.
All right.
What's lame call to action is like, subscribe, follow, buy the merch, use our referral code. Let's do some better calls to action. Edit a Wikipedia page because of something you heard from us. Tell a friend not to watch a Steven... You don't have to tell someone not to watch a Steven Seagal movie. They know not to watch a Steven Seagal movie.
Buy the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of a movie that you like.
Yeah. No, just not a Steven Seagal one.
No. A movie that you like.
Tell a friend about that time Steven Seagal was put in a chokehold and crapped his pants on set.
By legend Gene LaBelle? Was it? Yes.
I mean, you can also like tell them to listen to our podcast and like and subscribe and favorite and smash.
No, don't do that.
Tell a friend about that time that Academy Award nominee, BAFTA Award winner Imelda Staunton joined a straight-to-DVD Seagal movie and acted absolute circles around everyone in every single scene with her.
No, tell them about that time Dr. Cox from Scrubs and Alfred the Butler from the Dark Knight trilogy were in an environmentally... Oh, and the mean drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket from the first half of that movie that people actually remember were in a movie together, directed by Steven Seagal.
Oh my god.
Directed, starring, written, if I remember correctly.
Oh, interesting. You know what's not interesting?
What?
Force of Execution, starring Steven Seagal, Danny Trejo, and Ving Rhames.
But you can't check your
Tony
hips.
Waxman.
It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like on top.
Okay, but real quick though, you just said this is Force of Execution starring Steven Seagal, Danny Trejo, and Ving Rhames.
But
the
not
poster has Steven Seagal like front and center, and then Ving Rhames and Danny Trejo on either side of him.
Yeah.
This movie is not about any of them.
No.
This movie is about someone else entirely. It is a different story about a different character who actually has a relatively interesting, in the context of what we're watching, interesting story.
For a Seagal movie, pretty interesting arc here.
Yeah, and they just ignore it entirely. No, this is a Seagal movie, but it's not about Seagal at all. No, well, then it's a Danny Trejo movie and it's about Ving Rhames. No, it's not. It's about somebody else entirely.
The main guy his name is on the poster, but his face is not. The
And
character
he has more
Hurst,
screen time than all of the rest of them combined.
Yes, the character Hurst, played by Bren Foster, he did a pretty good job. Like,
Yeah.
very respectable job as a leading man. He doesn't play drunk very well, which he spends a good amount of the movie drunk. But he's real good at kung fu, so like they could have put more of that in there and really let him shine. He's a very good stunt performer. Like, I think he did a really good job with all like the actual technicalities of the kung fu and stuff. I don't think it was shot super well, but he can do flip kicks and stuff, so that's cool.
Yeah, he's like an actual real
can do
life
flip kicks.
martial artist. He's
Yeah.
he's actually good at movie action.
Yeah.
And that's so strange to see back to back with Seagal. It's just
Yes.
1 second.
oh,
Yeah.
1 second.
oh,
1 second.
oh,
1 second.
oh.
This is Steven Seagal. This is
What?
this is episode 36 of Steven Seagal
Uh-huh.
reviewing, scare quotes, ostensibly reviewing Force of Execution 2013, directed by Keone Waxman, starring Steven Seagal, Danny Trejo, and Ving Rhames, but not really, actually starring Bren Foster. My name is
Yes.
Yes.
Would you like to give us a plot synopsis
Names.
here?
No, say your names.
Oh, I'm Aaron.
okay.
I'm Hans.
Okay. All right. Now
Okay.
we can just like rant. We'll do whatever we want.
Let's.
Okay, but
Aaron's
I'll do,
right.
I will
Aaron's right. Give us
blast
a
through a
plot
plot
synopsis.
recap, and
Can
then
we put
honestly just
somebody
like
else's
literally
name
pick
in,
up.
in our opening credits that isn't actually is like just makes basically a cameo and just pretend that the whole podcast is
Oh,
actually
that
about
would be-
that person?
That it's like the three of. Actually, what we should do is just like it's the three of us, and then we have this episode is just entirely hosted by someone else. Like we barely show up for like 20 seconds, but it's like us, like the names on like the when you search for us on like your favorite podcatcher app.
Yeah, and like the actual star of the thing is the fourth credit, and
Actually, funnily enough, the sixth credit on Letterboxd, if you look at the order there.
That is ridiculous.
Okay.
the main character.
So we find ourselves in learning about what a force of execution is. Shit, why does this movie does this start in the no, it
It
starts,
starts with
off
a
this and then goes-
voiceover.
Really bad one.
Okay, actually, no, I can't get into this too much. I need to do a plot recap. It starts off with like a weirdly really good like static like I can't say it's good cinematography because cinematography is not just pretty pictures. It is like visually using the the medium of film to help like
Tell a story.
all the other parts of it.
Yeah.
Right.
This shot has nothing to do with anything. Like it is the
No.
first shot of the movie. It has nothing to do like with anything after it. Doesn't connect to anything. But weirdly enough, like the very first thing on screen, I was like, that actually looks good. This is like from a different movie.
Gave me too much hope.
And well, it didn't give me too much hope because you actually have this like pretty cool opening shot of like the desert, and then you have like the most basic like PowerPoint looking like title intro Force of
Yeah.
Execution.
That was
Yeah.
pretty rough. That was
So-
straight out of Windows Movie Maker.
Steven Seagal is a mob kingpin, Mr. Alexander, they call him. And he brings in the actual star of this movie. Who, like we said, is Bren Foster. What is his character's name again?
Hurst.
Roman.
Roman Hurst. And basically Steven Seagal says, hey, you know what? Just call him Bren. Hey, Bren. I have some business associates here. They would like this person who's inside of a prison to be killed. So I'm going to send you in. Now, normally in a movie like this, they would like, if you had like a mob and it's established that they have connections within the prison, they would just be like, hey, person who's already in the prison, why don't you just like stab this guy for me? They don't do that. They say, hey, Bren, we're going to have you disguise yourself as an officer and break your way into the prison to kill one guy and then break yourself out of the prison.
Classically, two of the hardest things to do.
Literally, while you're in there, you will encounter multiple prisoners that are like on our payroll and are in the know and like are understanding what's going on, and you'll even like talk to some of them.
Like
They're
you have
not- we're not gonna
informants
have one-
in the prison.
We're not going to have
They
one of
even
them
show
kill this
that.
guy.
It's so stupid.
They send him in to kill this guy. He gets there and he's ready to kill the correct guy. And then Ving Rhames is there and he says, you should kill that. It's that other guy behind you. And so Bren kills the other guy behind him. And literally someone else is like, hey, you killed the wrong guy. But Bren's like, just whatever. I'm leaving. I'm getting it. So he just leaves the prison. And then they're very mad at him. They're like, you killed the wrong guy. Like as if there was any way he could have seen this coming. They are so mad that this guy.
He also
Brent,
killed like 5 other guys while he was there.
Oh, yeah, he could have just wiped out everybody.
Yeah, I
leave
don't know
no
why didn't
doubt,
just
but he
also
didn't.
kill the guy he thought maybe was it. But anyway,
Yeah.
good, because we need a reason for Steven Seagal to say, "You are literally my most trusted, closest, like best associate. I love you. You're like a son to me." But now I'm gonna just let these guys like permanently disable you, like beat the crap out of you and like torture you, like
Because you made one mistake.
because you made this mistake.
It was something like
I'm
30
gonna tell
years?
them to spare you.
It's even
That's what
dumber
I-
than that. Like, because the guy, it was Ving Rhames who gave him the bad intel when he was in prison. Ving Rhames gets out of prison, and then they meet, and Ving Rhames is like, he killed the wrong guy. And Hearst is like, Bren Foster says, you're the one who told me to kill, like, you were the informant. I killed the person you told me to kill. And Seagal chooses to trust Ving Rhames over like his number one best hitman. You're a son to me. Here's a family heirloom guy.
But whatever. His hands are severely broken. We see him 6 months later, looking pretty fine. Other than his hands not working too well, he actually seems to have healed up perfectly well.
Unfortunately,
but
he does not get magical powers like Doctor Strange.
But he needs to hold his liquor bottles like with both of his like hands, just as like mittens. Like he, you know, that's basically the main difference. He's living in like a crappy apartment above Danny Trejo's restaurants. And this is where we are also introduced to Steven Seagal's girl, who's not his girl.
This
We
is
have
twice we've
Karen.
done this.
We have Karen, played by Jenny Gabriel, who only hangs out at this restaurant, seems to be friends with Danny Trejo, playing the character named Oso.
She's
Never
like a
interacts
bartender.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Never see her actually interact with Seagal.
Nope.
But
No,
Not until
she-
the
not until
very end of
very
the
end.
movie.
woman.
Yep.
In fact, has multiple long, heartfelt conversations with Bren
And Danny Trejo.
and Danny Trejo.
Like boss, father figure.
Yeah.
So again, much like which one was this? Born to Raise Hell?
God, who knows?
Where it would make more sense if just this other guy was the main character and Steven Seagal really should be the main character, and it makes sense that this other guy fell in love with the gal. That's exactly what's happening here again.
Yeah.
Okay. Blast through this. Let's because I'm like literally forgetting the movie as I'm talking. I need to just, like, speedrun this like while it's still there.
This one was greasy. Just slides right off the brain.
So greasy. I'm watching it and I'm feeling none of it land. I'm feeling it just go right over. I'm like flowing right past this.
It was so difficult to follow,
Well,
too.
So basically what happens is now Ving Rhames is like, hey, I was like, Seagal trusted me. I was his informant in prison, but now I'm just kind of doing my own thing. I'm making my own gang and I am just going to take out Seagal and his gang. So Seagal, 6 months later, after this dude got the ever-loving crap beat out of him, he's like, hey, I need you to like help me stop like Ving Rhames. You're like my most trusted best guy. I'm pulling you out of retirement, which was you being viciously beaten to the point that you can't fight anymore.
Forced retirement by the mob.
Forced
yeah.
retirement. Yeah, he retires him, and then he says, I'm pulling you out of retirement. And
No, in like the most confusing way possible.
Blasting.
Sorry.
We gotta blast through this.
I have something to say about how he does this. It's so dumb.
Okay.
But continue.
I will let you say that.
Okay.
But at least this should be fast, because basically what happens is they kind of have an interesting gimmick where this guy can't use his hands really well, so like most of his fighting he has to do like with his legs, so he's doing like a lot of kicks and like stuff, which is kind of cool.
Straight out of
But,
One
like,
Piece.
Yeah, he's basically like fighting dudes fairly well for the longest time. But then, things are ramping up. So randomly, Danny Trejo, who manages this restaurant, is like, by the way, I'm a Mexican witch doctor, and I'm going to knock you out and then tie you up and restrain your hands, but then wait for you to wake up again so I can inject them with a rare scorpion poison and like hit them with a chisel, and that's going to fix your hands.
It was two scorpions.
But while he's doing this,
Work
Danny
together.
Trejo, Karen, and Bren are kidnapped by Ving Rhames' men, and they're like, "Oh, hey, this guy Bren, he's dead. Take him out to the desert and bury him." While they're doing that, he all of a sudden, he wakes up and he has his hands again. He's fully realized he can fight again, just as good as he could before. He kills the dudes. Danny Trejo gets killed. So now Bren has to meet up with Seagal and fight through Ving Rhames' guys. And then, very weirdly enough, they get to the end, and they're like, oh, it's only Ving Rhames left. He's the only one alive. Okay, you go take him out, and I'll go find Karen. And then, like, 4 seconds later, Ving Rhames walks into the room with Karen. So I'm just like, I don't really know why we needed that scene where they talk about splitting up and then immediately don't split up, because both of the people they're like, where else would Karen be? If she's not with Ving Rhames, she's fine. She's either with Ving Rhames or she's fine. So you're both after the same person. So
that was the conversation they had. They were like, well, we find her, we find him, we find him, we find her. Got it? Yeah.
It's weird. They're talking about splitting up, and then he just walks in the room, and then he's just like, how do I get out of here? So then Seagal turns on a flashlight and throws the flashlight in the air to distract him, and then shoots Ving Rhames in the head. And that's the end of the movie.
Well, no. Well, hold on. That's not the end. Because Ving Rhames falls down onto the ground. They have a heartfelt moment where Karen runs over to Seagal because she's his girl, even though that's never established.
It's the first time they've interacted in this movie.
Exactly.
It's in the last 1 minute.
It's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely absurd. He has never been there for her. She's had so much more screen time with Danny Trejo and Bren Foster than any of these other people. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, but it's a Seagal movie. He's on the cover, so whatever. They walk away. Bren looks back over and sees that Ice's body is gone. There's a big blood stain and then footprints as if he got away. And then he just shakes his head. And then the movie's over.
He got shot in the head. In the middle of his forehead.
And he just got up, walked away. The main character says, huh, that's weird. Cut to credits.
It is.
The what?
Thing.
This movie is very passably boring until you get to the end and you're like, what is happening?
Oh my god.
Also, what's really funny, there's 3 people in this poster watching this movie are Ving Rhames and Seagal. Are either of them even aware that Danny Trejo's character exists?
Seagal does know that Oso exists, Danny Trejo's character. Apparently, so Danny Trejo's restaurant is in Seagal's
that's right. He's
territory.
The one that tells him to witch doctor the guy's hands back together.
So his restaurant is in Seagal's territory.
That is right.
And the thing that the straw that breaks the camel's back for Seagal is Ving Rhames trying to take over that restaurant for some reason. Yeah.
Right.
Because that's where his girl works, and this guy he knows that he has not interacted with throughout this movie.
No. That's the point. That's the turning point for Seagal, because up to that point he has done literally nothing to stop Ving Rhames just taking over his criminal empire. Absolutely nothing.
Oh, I'm not going to say it's worth mentioning. It should be pointed out. That's
the
Seagal.
Same thing.
Hey, Steven. You can be the mob boss that sits around and tells other people what to do. And you can, I guess, if you so desire, be the person that is Special SEAL Team 5,
his getup.
Tactical, invasion dude. It is very weird to switch in the third act from one to the other. To suddenly go from mob boss who sits around just telling, saying the word motherfucker every sentence and telling people what to do, to all of a sudden strapping up and being the dude who trained every single person who was ever in the SWAT team.
With the backwards ball cap on and the glasses.
You can't do both.
He remembered, this is who I want to be.
And that's the guy we're going to get for the rest of these movies. This is the first of the goatee era Seagal. And they don't get any different. Sorry.
Also,
Aaron.
Steven Seagal's villain is imperceptible in terms of acting and characterization and lines and delivery and everything from his good guys. Anyway, okay, Aaron, I know you had something you wanted to say.
So, when Seagal is speaking to his right-hand man, whose hands he broke, and is trying to tell him that he's going to bring him back, every line he says contradicts the line before it and after it.
That's some good classic Seagal dialogue.
He'll say something along the lines of, I'm retiring you, you're done. I'm going to call you sometime to bring you back. Don't ever contact me, but one day you will be useful to me again, but you're done. Do you know what this scene is, Steven? Do you know what you're trying to accomplish in this moment?
And just when he's saying that, you have to picture in your mind, you have to think about it with the worst, I don't even know what accent he's going for. This it's like a mix of Western and
it's the accent of one who has given up.
I can't even describe it. It was so strange. It didn't make it wasn't it. I can't get out what I'm trying to say, but that's because I can't come up with what it is that he was trying to do. It was just so odd. It didn't make any sense. And he's slurring his words the entire time. You can't actually make out what he's saying.
I had to
It's
turn on
rough.
subtitles. I never watch these with subtitles. I had to turn it on because I couldn't understand what he was saying.
That's saying something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And-
I
Yeah.
gotta be honest, I love you, Ving Rhames, but I think like, and Danny Trejo, but with the three of them, like half of this movie's dialogue is people like older gentlemen, like very, very like just grumbly graveling their way through it. Like,
Yeah.
everybody talks like this. It's really hard to understand it. Like, they're not doing the same voice Seagal's doing. I'll be very clear,
No.
but they are all talking so low and gravelly. They're having like a gravel off at some point.
A little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. It sucks because I like Ving Rhames, but he does not like
this is
he
not his
didn't do
best
very
work.
well. No, he didn't do very
he-
well in this movie. And
He
honestly,
brings the performance. You know what? Here's my like, secretly a compliment. You could put this on the poster and think it's like praise, but it's actually very critical. He brings the performance this movie deserves. Ving Rhames brings the performance warranted for this film.
So, like, I was in my Letterboxd review. I said, Ving Rhames, you didn't have to be in this movie. Danny
No.
Trejo, you didn't have to be in this movie.
Mm-mm.
I was researching a little bit of what they've done so far to this point. Like, Ving Rhames was just coming off of Ghost Protocol. And Danny Trejo, this was his 15th movie in 2013.
Neither of them could have been this hard up for cash.
Neither of them needed to be in this movie.
No.
There is no
I
way.
mean, it sounds like Danny Trejo had a free weekend, so they just fit him. In this movie. Like, okay, you watched his witch doctor scene and tell me that was not just like completely like off like the first read.
Oh,
Dude,
yes.
Danny
no, it was
Trejo-
bad.
In a stark contrast to Ving Rhames, Danny Trejo acted the out of this movie. He put in full effort, and he was just having fun.
Well, I think he was trying to have fun.
I don't know if it's full effort, but I will agree that it was tough.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not full effort, but I think he was having a good time.
I think
This-
he looked over each of his lines once and then just like
Went
did
for
maybe one or two takes, just went for it all
Yeah.
out, and they said, you know what, that works.
So
Yeah.
he goes when he's fixing Bren's hands. He has him like strapped down. He has his hands like each individual finger strapped down to this board, and he's telling him about how he's going to inject each of his fingers with these two scorpion
a
venoms
black
or
scorpion
scorpion
and an
poison.
albino scorpion.
Yeah, that like together those will like fix. They'll get the feeling back in his hands and fix his hands. And he goes. He says, this was my quote. He goes, it's old family medicine. It goes way back. Mayans or Incans or some, I don't know, old. And the look on his face, that might have been off the cuff. That might have been the first time he ever even saw those lines. I don't know. But he nailed it. It made me laugh so hard. It was ridiculous.
I think that's just kind of like a product of the fact that I think Danny Trejo can just casually outact pretty much everyone else in this movie.
Could be. But we talked about that with Machete and how he can, like, what was it that we said? It was that Steven Seagal wants to look as casual as Danny Trejo looks, but Danny
Yeah.
Trejo puts in the effort and has the skill to look that casual, and Steven Seagal does not. So he
Yeah.
comes off looking like garbage.
I
But-
mean, like you've said, he has done 15 movies this one year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is literally like, he can do this with his eyes closed.
Yeah.
This was his 15th movie in 2013.
That's insane.
But you have to remember, from that scene that you mentioned, you have the quote that you said. You also have, wait, have you done the surgery before? And he says, I mean, I think I've seen someone do it before. And you also have, well, can you at least knock me out while you do it? And then he responds, no, like the adrenaline from the fear needs to like course through your veins to activate the scorpion venom. I think something like that.
Well,
But
and then
like-
But it's
when he
perfect.
starts
The
perfectly
delivery is
cast.
perfect.
well,
if
when
like
he
if those
starts,
are the
like,
lines as written, he's just perfectly cast because he does a great job with those.
he does. But when he starts like chiseling on the guy's fingers, he's hitting the wrong side of the chisel. He has the handle of the chisel up against the guy's hand, and he's hitting the blade.
That's
Again,
that's
Danny
how he saw it
Trejo-
done.
Danny Trejo brings the exact performance that this movie deserves. I don't think that was an accident. I think he was like, I'm just gonna do it upside down. Like,
Who cares?
Probably not to.
Ding,
Like,
ding,
Could be.
ding, 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 ding.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
That was in an otherwise like just kind of dull, not necessarily terrible, but also not good. Like in just a middle of the road Seagal movie. Well, no, just sort of a middle of the road movie. Danny Trejo was a delight.
Yeah.
And Bren, sorry, I
Bren
forget your
Foster.
last
Bren
name.
Foster.
Bren Foster, solid. Very
Solid.
good.
He's like in that scene with the scorpion venom. He's trying so hard.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can see he's
Yeah.
giving it his all to like
he's actually
scream
trying
and
throughout the whole movie.
throw around, and like he's a very good stuntman. Like he's doing cool
Yeah.
flips, and he does like, and when he finally kicks Ving Rhames in the head, he does like a double spin kick, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but that is back to back. It's like such a. I say this all the time, but it is. It's such a stark contrast. It's back to back with another scene where Steven Seagal is like casually throwing someone who runs at him into the background, and then they just die
Yeah.
because that's all he can do anymore. But that's still supposed to be impressive. It's so strange. I think I have written down. Excuse me, I have written down in my notes, like, this is the beginning of what I think is going to be a new era where, like, instead of Seagal doing the work, Seagal is still the front man. He is still the lead, but he brings in a younger guy. He brings in an actual martial artist to do the bulk of the work, but he's like, you got to do it my way.
Yeah.
And
I
then
would
doesn't.
absolutely agree.
It's
I know we've said that a few times, like, oh, this is a new era. I think this is actually just like the way the movies are done from now on, which honestly I'm fine with, because this is the first time in a while I've watched a Skull movie. Like, there are multiple scenes, multiple times where this guy will like jump off of a wall and kick a guy and like land, and it's all in one shot.
Oh,
That's
they
not,
do
like,
a
15
they do a
different
hallway
cuts.
scene, like they do a hallway sequence.
So I'm like
Like a
you know
hallway
what?
fight.
This is fine. This is less bad Seagal stunt choreography if he just has like the younger, like this. When I looked this guy up, he has like martial arts and stunt work background. He's not normally an actor. I'm like, okay, just bring him in to do the flips and jumps and kicks and stuff if that's what he's good at. Don't
Yeah.
try to make this like 60-year-old man like keep trying to do this when he couldn't even
Obviously
do it like
can't.
in his younger years.
Yeah, but like, how sad is it that this is still a Seagal movie? Like, this guy should have, and it looks like he, like, I know we haven't gotten to this part yet, but he has a pretty successful career and has since had a successful career. But like, that movie should have been
He
his
should
movie.
be front billing. Like
That exactly. That should not have been a Seagal movie. This should have
Wait.
been a Bren. I'm so sorry, I can't remember your last
Foster.
name. Bren Foster. This should have been a Bren Foster movie.
it was a Ben Foster movie.
Yeah, I just
was.
sent you a bigger version of the poster. He is in this poster. I just saw
Yes.
it. He's in the reflection in Seagal's glasses.
That's so much more insulting than not being on the
That's
Isn't it?
worse. That's worse.
That's
than
awful.
not being on
He
the
is in one
poster.
reflection of one of Seagal's sunglasses.
Also,
That's
can anybody tell
ridiculous.
me
Like,
what
that's-
"don't break the code" means?
The
Don't
gangster
be
code.
told
I don't know.
to kill the wrong prisoner and kill the
Oh,
wrong
wait,
prisoner,
oh, wait.
and then have the guy who told you the wrong prisoner.
Oh, he's
Right?
he's on the poster in two places. In the lettering for Force of Execution.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. It's a subtle one.
Oh,
That's double worse than
It
just.
almost feels like they
Mid-kick.
shot this movie. It almost feels like they shot this movie, and then he's like, "Okay," but his agent is like, "He needs to be on the poster. He's literally the star of the movie." So they just did the most like technicality, like, "Yes, you are on the poster way possible."
Yeah.
seriously, that's so insulting. Like, honestly, I'm insulted for this guy because this movie does him such an injustice.
Like the poster could have been that flying kick that's in the lettering.
Yeah, could have been any of them.
Yeah, he does like multiple flying spin kicks, and they're pretty cool. And nope.
Nope, we just get
I
Seagal in his painted on hair and his goatee.
I think Bren Foster's flying spin kicks by themselves have more screen time than Seagal or Danny Trejo or Ving Rhames.
Yeah.
And that's but for like Danny Trejo or even Ving Rhames, like, he's the villain, but Danny Trejo is just a supporting character and he nails that character. But Seagal being like the front man, he definitely his spin kicks definitely have more screen time than Seagal does in total. It's just insane.
It's wild.
Because he shows up at the beginning, he's gone for most of the middle of that movie, and then he decides to suit up and like help out at the end.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because
Also-
it's his mansion that they're defending. Sorry, go ahead.
I just had like I was very confused throughout most of the middle of this movie, like the middle 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Like what was actually happening? Because people are talking to people. Like there's these two
The
clubs
trend continues.
that people are going in and talking to each other in these two like nightclubs, and one's like Mexican and dead, and there's like nobody there, and one is not, and there are like 100 people there all the time. But I don't know. Like, you don't find out until almost the end of the movie what each of those places are. Like, one is owned by Seagal. The one that has nobody in it is under Seagal's protection. And the other one that has all these people in it is Ving Rhames. But, like, that's not explained until almost the end of the movie.
No.
Like, so I had no... People were just talking to people. There's a guy with a cowboy hat that we haven't talked about at all who gets killed in his truck off screen.
Because it doesn't matter.
Because it doesn't matter.
This is very affirming because I was watching this movie just thinking, oh no, I have the recap for this. Like, I'm going to struggle. I'm going to need someone else to do this.
I think you
Until I
nailed
was
it.
just like,
You got
no,
the
none of this
beginning.
really matters.
Yeah, it doesn't. You got the setup, and then you got the end. You got the payoff at the end, and that was. You got the hands broken, hands fixed. That was it.
And
That
that's
was the movie.
Like, that actually is more of a setup payoff, more of a character arc, more of like a hero's journey than any other Seagal movie, and it's not Seagal's character.
Yeah. That's so. I'm honestly, I'm getting more and more frustrated the more we talk about this because it's. Yeah. Yep.
We don't actually get the central conflict until like an hour into the movie.
No, not really.
One of my notes here is where is it? Where did I put who are these people? Who's who? What are the factions? What's going on? I don't. I'm at like the hour mark, and I don't know the answer to any of those questions. And the movie does move very slowly.
It does.
I think like the opening prison scene is at least somewhat interesting because you at least kind of know the mission.
Yeah,
And
that's
like,
clear.
There's a couple fight scenes in the middle that you just seem to happen for no reason, and then at the end you kind of you know, okay, now this is the final showdown. Like, I understand why it's happening. So like the parts that actually have plot reason to happen, I can remember fairly well, and the middle is just a big blur.
Yeah.
I watched this literally earlier today, and it's a big blur.
Two things that I thought were very funny. So at one point, Seagal meets with Ving Rhames to like let's sit down and talk this out. You know, we don't have to fight. And Seagal just says, "Make me an offer for a certain amount of money, and I'll just fly to Thailand, and you can just have everything. I don't actually care. I'll just leave."
Yeah, fun fact about this whole mob takeover Ving Rhames is doing it. Seagal is trying to retire. He's done being a mobster.
He doesn't want to be a mobster anymore.
And at the end of the movie, Bren asks him, "So are you really gonna?" Right before we look over and see the villain Iceman Ving Rhames has just gotten up and walked away after being shot in the head, and he goes, "Oh, that's weird." He asks Seagal, "So are you really gonna retire after all this?" And Seagal, as his arm around Karen, who shouldn't be with him in the first place, says, "Yeah, I think so," and then he walks off.
What?
So
Like, he's trying to leave. Ving Rhames can just be like, "Hey, can I be in charge?" And Seagal be like, "Sure."
I didn't even know that. Honest to God, I did not know that he was trying to retire until then. I got to that. Maybe that's why it stood out to me, because he asked, "Are you really going to retire?" And I was like, "What do you mean retire? When was he supposed to retire?" And then...
So I thought that was funny that he offers to just sell his entire criminal enterprise and move to Thailand, which definitely should have taken him up on that one.
Thailand. I got to go to Thailand for a thing.
Like, that was a weird... Like, that was a weirdly specific suggestion, right?
Yeah, Seagal probably threw that in there.
Like, he could have just said, "I'm just going to leave the country." He could have said, "Leave the country," and that would have been fine. But he said Thailand specifically. But anyway.
Yeah.
Also, so after Bren Foster gets double poisoned in the hands by two different kinds of scorpions, he passes out. And Ving Rhames people get him and throw him in the trunk of a car and drive him out into the desert to like chop him up and bury him in the desert.
Oh, yes.
Because they think he's got some sort of contagious disease. Sure. They didn't want to bring the plague into their house. That not my words, theirs. And so he like hops out of the trunk and he's fighting these two dudes, and he gets into a knife fight with one of the guys, except like every time the camera angle changes, there's a new knife in the fight. So first it's Bren Foster has no knife and the gangster has a knife, and then they'll like do a couple moves at each other, and then it'll cut away for a second, it'll cut back, and now they both have a knife. And then it'll cut away, and then it'll cut back, and now the gangster has 2 knives and Bren has 1 knife. And then it'll cut back, and they both have 2 knives, and it cut back, and then Bren has 2 knives, but then the gangster has a knife and like a piece of rebar or something. It was very funny. I thought that was actually quite funny. I think they were just kind of having fun, maybe, or they just did not care at all and just said, "Hey, let's try this with let's do the same fight scene but with a bunch of different weapons." And discovered when they did that, it took too long, and they only had 5 short fights instead of 1 long fight, and they just had to cut them all together. That's my thought.
So here's my theory, because I think that scene was filmed by second crew or something.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that scene was filmed by the same crew, the same director, maybe even, I don't know, that filmed the rest of the movie, because it was shot differently. It looked different. It was obviously in a very different location, but the actors didn't show up before or after that either. So Bren Foster was the only one, the guy who was driving the truck. I don't think he was the one who left with the truck. It wasn't different even actor. A truck. They had him in the back of a pickup truck, and then when they were driving him out to the desert, he was in the trunk of a car, and they didn't show that transition. Nope. So it's a different actor, different car, and then the other actor, the other gang member, meets him out there on a
dirt bike.
On a dirt bike. So I think it was just they filmed entirely separate by another crew, and that's why it might be. Maybe they were having more fun with it. Maybe they didn't know how to splice the footage together. But I also think they were just better at it. Maybe had more fun with it.
Has happened a few times.
It has.
Movies.
It was such a. I'm going to say it again because I say it all the time. It was such a stark contrast to the rest of the movie because it was just so, everything about it was different. And you notice it immediately. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know who that guy is. But you start off the scene with the guy calling his girlfriend, telling her to get ready because he's going to be home soon after he buries this dead body in the desert. He meets up with his buddy who's on a dirt bike who brings a shovel. And then he starts making fun of him, calling him one shovel because he only brought one shovel to go bury a body. And the guy's like, you got a car. You could have had a shovel. And there's this not witty, but it's this fun back and forth, making fun of each other because the guy only brought one shovel to bury a dead body in the desert. I was having a good time.
It does feel like it's from a different movie.
It does.
This happened before. Remember in A Dangerous Man, where you had
I don't remember anything about Dangerous Man. It's insulting you even think I could.
I while Hans was talking, I had to look it up, which movie I was thinking about. But you have the 2 Chinese gangs, and they're out in Wyoming or something.
Yeah.
And some of the scenes, especially with the cops, look pretty good. And a lot of the B-roll is nice.
Yeah.
But then you get to the main meat of the movie, and it's just shot bad, lit poorly.
Mm-hmm.
No one seems to know their lines. The blocking is weird.
So this is perhaps a Keone Waxman signature.
Yeah, that just
Did he also direct that movie?
Yeah. So Keone Waxman has directed, starting with The Keeper in 2009, A Dangerous Man in 2009, Maximum Conviction in 2012.
Oh my god.
True Justice, the TV show, which we haven't watched.
And I don't play.
And then Force of Execution in 2013. And he still will also do A Good Man, Absolution, End of a Gun, Cartel, His Contract. He's this whole era that we're in is Keone Waxman.
Oh no.
Wow. Okay.
We are 4 in so far.
Interesting.
So the Keone Waxman, septology or whatever.
Interesting.
So out of those 4, where would you rank this?
Octology.
Keone Waxman oeuvre. I didn't actually count. I don't know how many.
They just all feel so much the same, but this one has a better cast than the last few.
I just they got a real martial artist who had a real story, who's actually can act. He can't really drunk act, but for the rest of the movie, he can
Everything
act.
else he does pretty well. He doesn't act drunk very well, but everything else he does great. So,
and in fairness, acting drunk is really difficult.
It's pretty
so.
hard.
Whatever, he should have been the star of this movie, and then they I don't know.
He was the
feels
star
they're
of the movie.
okay, well, but if we bring Seagal into this, we'll get funding.
But I come back to something I say every other episode. Why?
They could have.
How?
They could have even played it Danny Trejo could have been Seagal's character. It's like they bumped Danny Trejo down to the role of owner of bar, so
think that was
Seagal
the
could be the lead.
Half of Seagal's gang members are Hispanic.
Actually, you know what?
What? It's like it was that. It feels like at times that was the intention.
Yeah. Actually, yes.
They speak Spanish to each other frequently.
So the script doctor of what this should be is just Danny Trejo, Mexican gang versus Ving Rhames, African American gang.
With Bren Foster
is loyal
front and center on the
Danny
poster.
Trejo, but he's the main character, kind of in between this gang warfare.
Yeah,
and he has the romantic subplot with Karen.
Yes.
Who, I'm sorry, we haven't really talked about her character, her actress as much. Her character is just relegated to being rescued. I'm so sorry. Like, you were not given a lot to perform with. That is not your fault, Jenny Gabriel.
She
you have
was sexually assaulted and kidnapped, and those are the two things that happened to her.
I think she has like the most paper thin like female character we've seen in a Skull movie, which is saying
That's a lot.
That is a low bar, and somehow they scooted her right under it.
Yeah, that was amazing.
But yeah, and then you just completely remove Skull's character, and this whole movie makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So
you don't have a guy randomly trying to retire to Vietnam, but also engaging in gang warfare.
Yeah. So you have like the Hispanic gang versus the African American gang, and this white guy kind of caught in between, doesn't really know what's going on, and he has to pick a side or die, and that would be the movie. But
yeah,
that would be a much better movie.
Okay, yeah, Force of Execution. Still don't know why it's called Force of Execution, but I'll watch that.
Yep.
Don't break the code, apparently.
No, they should just call it West Side Story. Any other thoughts on this movie?
Is this so? Now that we're sort of getting into that time period where we're bringing in a younger martial artist, is that like how Seagal sees himself? Does that genuinely? I think that's how he sees himself. Like back in your,
like back in his younger days.
Yeah. Like he
is
actually
this like him
sees
taking
himself.
a guy under his wing or something.
There is a feeling of like the old heads, like showing the young new people the way things are done.
Yeah, and that's really frustrating to me.
Yeah, except they're out like just in the story. I don't know how things were behind the scenes, but according to all the information we have about his other movies behind the scenes, not good. But like throughout the movie, in the plot of this, all that Seagal does to Bren Foster's character is just abuse him.
Yep.
Yeah. No.
There is no reason for Bren to be loyal to Seagal at all.
Not at all. Not a one.
To literally like just be completely beaten out of work, and then when he shows up, like, hey, actually, can you fight for me again? After I told these dudes to like, beat you.
He does have a reason to be loyal to Danny Trejo, though.
Yes, so that's actually a really good point, because I'm just now that you say it, it was Seagal's character who asked Danny Trejo to use his witch doctor scorpion magic to give Bren his hands back. He could have done that. Ignoring the fact that he should not have let him, for one mistake in 30 years, for his best, hitman, his right-hand man of his entire crime syndicate,
to whom he
allowing
gave, like, a
him to be
exactly,
giving him a family heirloom, allowing him to be tortured and disabled, and then forcibly retired from the mob, and then giving him 6 months of being absolutely miserable, turning into a drunk, and then saying, actually, I need you again, let's fix your hands up. Like, what kind of garbage is that?
Now that you're useful to me again, I'm going to give you medical treatment.
Right?
But I didn't care when you were, suicidal and, an alcoholic.
It's such...
But you know who did care about him?
Danny Trejo! And Karen!
Who gave him a place to live and fed him. And gave him, like, a job sometimes.
This
and like
movie sucks!
Cared about him.
Actually, you want to know something funny?
Please.
You're going to hate... Hans, you're going to hate this so much.
Let's hear it.
But weirdly enough, I saw a TikTok comment. No, weirdly enough, I saw a TikTok comment the other day that like was strangely, both like kind of strangely like wise in a way in what it said, and also like weirdly applicable.
So
here.
far this episode, you brought up a tweet and now a TikTok comment. SMH my head.
These dang millennials.
But I saw a TikTok comment earlier this week that said there's a point of absurdity that is beyond moral justification.
What?
And there is a point of absurdity that is beyond moral justification. And I think that's the only way to read this movie. It's like there's some point where you're just like, this makes so little sense and like sounds like such a fever dream to describe it that you can't even begin to unpack like how messed up it is for a character to do this. Because you're like, why would they even do this in the first place? How would they even do this in the first place? Why is this happening? Like, yes, it is messed up that he had the guy beaten and then waited 6 months. But like, his cure is a bar-owning Mexican witch doctor using scorpions. You're just like, what? Like, I can't even consider how messed up this is because I can't even consider any part of this without my brain folding in on itself. And that's the movie.
It makes negative sense.
It makes negative sense. Yeah, it's like when you walk into a room and then walk backwards out into a different room. Like, it is non-Euclidean. It is the old ones. It is Lovecraftian to try to comprehend. Also, the first, like, when they're in the prison... First of all, I kind of laughed at the beginning whenever apparently the main like conversation of prisoners sitting around like in the cafeteria of a prison is just talking about how much they love stabbing other prisoners.
Oh my
Is that really what they talk about all day? But the first 15 minutes of this movie are like a surprise pop quiz on every single racial slur you've ever like maybe heard at one point, and I was really concerned that was going to continue, and thankfully it does stop, but that's a really rough opening 15 minutes. Again, it is absurd beyond the point of like moral comprehension.
Like, it's just
I'm like, I can't even talk about how problematic this is because like my brain isn't ready to actually absorb what is happening.
It gets to a point, it just like rolls over you at a certain point. Like, you're already drowning in it, so adding more doesn't really change anything.
Exactly. I'm drowning and you're giving me a water bottle. Like, that's what's happening.
Like, you might as well just throw more on there because it doesn't change anything after a certain point. I'm already dead.
A really good way of putting it.
So this movie is weirdly like overwhelming and forgettable to the nth degree, but also just completely like overwhelming to the senses and like beyond comprehension. I don't know how that happens, but
overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time.
You know, I'm thinking about this now. You ever watch like a horror series or something where there's a character who keeps showing up but acts in like a metatextual way, and maybe you wonder, why is he here? Like, what's going on? Like, he doesn't make sense in the narrative, and this whole thing would make more sense without him in it. And you find out later at some point that he's like some sort of monster from beyond the universe, like encroaching into the narrative, and that like the horror comes from the unknown. I think Seagal is the elder beast. Just like reaching into this narrative and inserting himself where he doesn't belong. And like his character makes no sense. Like, if it were a Tyler Durden situation where like Bren Foster just imagined Seagal's character and he never actually existed, it would have made more sense.
I'm open to that interpretation. I would also agree that much like the old ones of the Cthulhu mythos, that if you stare at these small movies long enough, it will drive you to madness. And I think we're all experiencing that.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's too late for us.
We are witnessing the incomprehensible.
We can rename the podcast on the Mountains of Madness. Drinking from the fountains of sadness.
Like, we have to trust the reason at this point.
On the mountains of madness, drinking from the fountains of sadness.
I think I killed Hans.
Is that an Aaron original?
That's an Aaron original.
Oh my god, I love it. We need to use that somewhere.
The blood bank.
That is perfect. The blood bank.
Just the
I'm ashamed of myself.
The blood.
Oh my god, you shouldn't be. That is
art we are making from this trash.
Perfect.
The gold we are making from this lead.
These are ready made. You just gotta like turn them sideways, and suddenly it's art.
I cannot wait until we get to watch the prequel to this film.
What?
What?
Whoa!
What?
Whoa.
Oh my!
So we just watched Force of Execution.
We did.
1 year later, 2014, A Good Man. Seagal and Keone reprise the roles as actor and director. I don't believe any of the other. Let me double check that real quick. Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone else comes back, but allegedly the next film we'll be watching, A Good Man, is a prequel with Seagal's character and no one else. So literally the prequel to this movie is going to contain the one character that we said cannot and should not actually be in this film. The most disposable character has his own prequel movie.
Outstanding. I would expect nothing less.
What?
So that will be next episode.
I'm sold.
A Good Man. The prequel, apparently, allegedly, The Force of Execution.
And it seems like just reading like 3-sentence synopsis on IMDb, this has nothing to do with Force of Execution.
Why would it?
Like, it's not about him building his crime empire in New Mexico, or like, no, he's in like Bucharest or something. I don't know. I don't care. These movies don't care. Why should I?
mean, Under Siege 2 had nothing to do with each other other than the character name being the same. Black Dawn and whatever that was related to, nothing to do with each other other than the character's name.
That was
the
the
same.
Foreigner?
Yeah, Foreigner and Black Dawn.
Oh,
they
yeah,
had no
yeah.
story beats related to each other. No,
not at all.
characters.
Not even close.
That's very much a trend.
Completely
this
unrelated.
Is the first time we're seeing it in the Keone Waxman era.
I'm looking forward to Beyond the Law, just having nothing to do with anything.
Honestly, I hope they try to tie it back in just like the weakest way possible.
Hey, remember that movie from the 80s? No, actually, I don't.
I mean, maybe it's one of the only ones you remember.
I actually
Aaron,
don't.
I think for Beyond the Law, you should watch that one with your dad.
I should watch that one with my dad. You're right, absolutely. Say, hey, Dad, remember that movie that you liked? Above the Law, blam, blam, blam. That one? It has a sequel, did you know? That Seagal made like 30 years after the fact.
Direct to video.
Oh, man.
Let's watch it.
So, I mean, Ving Rhames, you know what Ving Rhames has been in before and after this. Danny Trejo, you know he's been in before and after this. Bren Foster, like we said, this was his like first kind of acting role. He has some other credits.
He was good.
Yeah.
I wanted him to get more stuff.
Yeah, and it looks like he's
lot
had
of,
a good career after this.
Stuff, sci-fi and horror. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny Gabriel, who plays Karen, she was in the Maze Runner Scorch Trials and The Kid in 2019.
Nice.
Sure. She is a couple. I hope she's doing well. Those are the only names that I really...
We have 2 Breaking Bad alumni in this. Yeah.
Yeah, Danny Trejo.
Oh, well, okay.
Oh, 3 actually, including Danny Trejo. I didn't even think about that. Jesus Jr.
Well, Danny Trejo's head.
That's true. Yeah. He's a strip club bouncer in this, but he's been in past Seagal movies too. He was I can't remember his character's name. He was Tuco's right-hand man in Breaking Bad. And then
the dude that Tuco punches the absolute like living out of?
No, it's his buddy.
Oh, okay.
He's the other one. Gonzo was his name. Yeah. And then Sarah Minnick. I'm sorry, I don't know. She plays stripper in this movie. Very nice. But she also plays party girl in Breaking Bad. I don't know.
Oh.
But
wait, did you mention Rio Alexander? Is that who you were just talking about a second ago?
Who?
Rio Alexander. He's the cowboy who dies in his truck. That doesn't really matter to the plot of this movie. He was also in Breaking Bad. He played a federale.
Really?
Oh.
He was also in 310 to Yuma and Sicario.
Oh, okay.
So
should
for
we just
Breaking
assume
Bad
that maybe
alums.
they're making this movie and they're like, hey, Danny Trejo, can you just like find us some like people you've worked with? But he like finds a couple like, you know, other people that were
Well,
Breaking
Danny
Bad.
Trejo and Ving Rhames were both in a movie that same year together.
Really?
Hey,
yeah.
Guess what? Tate Fletcher, he was...
They were in Death Race 3 together that same year, 2013.
Okay, I'm watching Death Race 3. I'll tell you that much.
Was the Alexander one of the clubs in this movie?
Rio Alexander?
No. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Oh.
Alexander Guard number 1, played by Tate Fletcher. He was also in Breaking Bad as Lester.
Oh.
He was also in the original John
Alexander
Wick.
is the name of Seagal's character.
Ah.
Mr. Alexander.
Well, then he was one of the guards to Mr. Alexander. But he was also in Breaking Bad. He was also in Jurassic World, John Wick, Westworld, The Accountant,
Oh. Okay.
Free Guy.
Wow.
Why are
Wow.
the Accountant and Free Guy the two that you like sounded most excited there?
Maybe the most that I'm surprised about.
They're recognizable. I haven't seen either of them, but
Dang, that's funny.
star ratings?
2, solid 2.
Oh, I'm a 1.5.
What did I give this on Letterboxd? I think I gave it a 1.5. Yeah.
This is 1.5 is my like mid-tier, not completely blatantly offensive, but not great Seagal movie.
Maybe I'm
Could've been
putting this
could've
too
been
high.
worse. Most of it.
Yeah, I gave this 1.5.
1.5.
Well, now you're making me second guess myself. I thought
You can
2
give it
because
2.
I wanted
You're allowed to give it
I
2.
wanted to elevate Bren Foster's performance above Steven Seagal, considering he's not even on the freaking poster. Well,
I did-
outside of the reflection in Seagal's glasses.
I did watch this within hours of finishing Napoleon. So, like,
Okay, you want to know the sad thing though?
what?
Earlier this same week, yesterday. I don't know why I said earlier the same week. Yesterday, Sarah and I watched, which is technically earlier the same week, I guess, but people seem to get weird whenever I say like the other day, and it was like more than a week ago. Anyway, Sarah and I watched.
because that's weird.
Sarah and I watched A Biltmore Christmas. A Biltmore Christmas is a 2023 Hallmark original Christmas movie.
I saw ads for that the entire Thanksgiving weekend.
Like just
Nice.
at the like the whole thing takes place in the Biltmore house, or
Yeah, it's in the Biltmore house. It's so in A Biltmore Christmas, the gimmick, the setting of it is that there was like a classic, like we're talking like It's a Wonderful Life era, like, you know, early Hollywood like Christmas movie that was shot in the Biltmore. And this gal is writing the script for like the reboot or remake of this movie. And they're like, we don't like the ending that you gave, so we're gonna fly you down to go stay in the Biltmore and kind of tour it to like get an idea to like write this movie.
oh, that's nice.
And she ends up finding this hourglass that sends her back in time. So she goes back in time to like the set of the Biltmore. And she,
Okay,
like,
this
falls
is
in love
way
with, like-
more than like I was expecting.
Okay, but
from a
hear me.
Hallmark
Okay,
movie.
but listen, because this is the thing. Ordinarily, I would be like, "Oh, I watched this really good movie earlier this week, and I remember it so much better than the Skull movie." And you should watch that instead. I watched a very decent movie earlier this week.
By
I will say-
Hallmark.
Probably the best Hallmark Christmas movie, Hallmark original movie in total I've ever seen. High praise on that. But like my comparison, my barometer is not like, oh, I watched Mission Impossible or John Wick earlier, and this is so much worse. Like the action is so much worse.
yeah,
I watched a Hallmark original movie. I enjoyed it more. I remember it much more. I would recommend it. My movie. If you, hey, instead of watching this, you should watch A Biltmore Christmas from the Hallmark Channel.
So you want to hear
If you-
something? Oh, go ahead.
If you enjoy Hallmark movies, or if you like live with a partner who like enjoys Hallmark movies and makes you watch Hallmark movies, Biltmore Christmas is actually pretty good. Those Hallmark writers, they came up with a second plot this time around, and it does not disappoint.
So you want to hear something really funny?
obviously.
I watched over Thanksgiving weekend because I was at Mom's house and she had the Hallmark Channel on the entire time, obviously. I watched the spiritual successor to Three Men and a Baby, Three Wise Men and a Baby.
Okay.
And it's the mom, it's instead of like three friends that live together, it's three brothers that live like in the vicinity of and like in the same house as their mom, just depending on where they are. And the mom in this movie was the woman whose baby it was in the original movie. So like they pitched this to her and asked her if she wanted to be involved with it, and she was like, "Yes, that sounds like a great idea." And that was actually a really good movie.
Hey everyone,
I
welcome to Mark the Halls with Boughs of Holly, the Hallmark original movie podcast.
Of all of the like cheesy, just like pump them
Wait.
out every year Christmas Hallmark movies, this one was actually really good, and it gave me a lot of good belly laughs.
What
I
what
was
were the
very
names of the three
surprised.
wise men?
What are their names? Steven, Taylor, and Luke.
They missed an opportunity there. Although I don't know how you get the names Melchior, Casper, and Balthazar to work in a modern Hallmark movie.
Don't think so. No, I see the issue.
Yeah, that
But
was
no,
good. That's
we,
gonna be since you're doing that. That's gonna be my recommend.
Wait, so this 2 out of our 3 recommendations are going to be for Hallmark Christmas movies? I
Yeah.
love that. That's amazing.
Aaron, what Hallmark movies have you watched recently?
I have
Yeah.
never seen a Hallmark movie.
Well,
sounds like you need to watch Three Wise Men and a Baby.
it sounds like you need to watch A Biltmore Christmas.
Ooh, what I'll recommend instead is well, I have to find the name of what it's actually called.
Wait, Aaron, you want to know something crazy?
What?
So for A Biltmore Christmas, the like lead actors, Hallmark movies like reuse a lot of the same actors. I didn't recognize them, like Sarah did. Like Sarah recognized most of them because like her and her mom love these movies.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even joking. Her mom literally like set an alarm to like watch this when it like aired on TV. Like we just happened to find that it was on like Peacock, so we watched it. But there was an actor I recognized. One of the main characters is played by Jonathan Frakes.
Oh,
Really?
Riker from Star Trek.
Really?
Yes.
wow.
That's
fantastic.
wacky.
I can't believe this. Like just the amount of like fond memories of like happy juice I'm feeling in my brain from thinking about A Biltmore Christmas, because it's just so much better than
Force of Execution.
Force of Execution.
What I will say to watch instead is a TV show. It's Ree Drummond's Christmas Cookie Challenge. My mom doesn't watch Hallmark movies, but she does watch like Christmas themed like baking competitions. And the great thing about Ree Drummond's Christmas Cookie Challenge is that it's hosted by Ree Drummond and Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson, I love you. My heart goes out to you. You are not good at hosting game shows, but that makes it so much better. Like, it's so good. Like, he bites into this cookie and he just doesn't got anything to say about like the cookie. He just kind of says whatever Ree says. And
Get roasted.
it's great.
I can respect that because I would love to be like a food show host or whatever, or like, an Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, like travel and just like eat food host. But I know I can't do that because like these professional chefs like an Andrew Zimmern or a Bourdain will like, talk about the complex, flavor profiles of something. Oh, you don't be like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you say more about it? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's like a little crunchy. Yeah, it's good. So I'm like, I get it, because that would be me. I'd be like, this could be better. This could be better, right? Yeah, this could be better. Try to do it better.
He's my favorite part of the whole show. I don't watch the show on my own, but like every time I go to my parents' house during like the Christmas season, my mom's got it on, and I'll walk over and say, "Mom, this show is not," and then I'll sit down and watch the entire thing with her.
Yes.
Because every episode, they it's not like each episode is just like one level of the bracket. No. They'll do the entire competition in one episode. They get those things going. It's like an hour and 20 minutes, and you have a winner at the end. You have like 20 bakers at the beginning of the episode, and by the end you have one winner. It's kind of amazing.
Dang.
No, we like got the like Santa visit like Lego playset, and I was like, oh, let's like put together like our Christmas Legos while we watch this like Biltmore Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And then I ended up like paying a lot more attention to the screen than I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
There's like fun little references, like when she's back in time and talking to the guy. This guy's like, oh yeah, like my friend Jimmy would say, oh, you gotta make sure you have the Christmas spirit there, And it's like he's doing a Jimmy Stewart impression. I'm like, that's funny because it's the 1940s.
It's funny.
That's funny. They do cute little things like that. Although weirdly enough, a lot fewer of like the cultural differences between times jokes that you'd understand it. Like at one point she tries to high five him, but that's really the only I'm from 2023 and you're from 1947 like joke that they make.
Huh.
They're surprisingly restrained in that way.
What about
but they
but
they'll like reference like Henry Fonda and stuff like
their clothes would have been way different.
Well, no, because she's staying in the Biltmore, like where the film was shot, and they have like props there on set. She's like, hey, since I'm researching the script, can I see some of the original like, clothes that they had for props? And so she wears like clothes from that period when she goes back in time to blend in.
How convenient.
More Karen thought than anything that's been put into it. Again, we're here to talk about ostensibly talk about a Steven Seagal film called Force of Execution. More Karen thought in that one little like. I'm not gonna lie, I'm thinking way more positively about this Christmas Biltmore movie than I thought I would. And I couldn't at this point, now that I've like talked about another movie for more than like 2 minutes, I've like already forgotten, like I can't tell you anything else about Force of Execution. If you asked me to like name a plot detail, it's gone.
Slipped right off the brain. It's greasy.
It's greasy.
Greasy movie.
We should probably wrap up this episode having said that.
Oh, did we give our favorite quotes?
You got mine.
Mine, it's I think like a prisoner says this. It's either a prisoner or one of the gangsters. Somebody says like, "Don't shit in my toilet," and I don't remember the context or why he says that or what that's supposed to mean. But I remember he said that, and I'm like, okay, I gotta remember that because if I remember nothing else, that's my quote.
I think my favorite line is, I don't know the exact wording, but I might be stealing from Hans because Hans mentioned a bunch of lines and then said, "Well, you have my favorite line." So mine is when Danny Trejo is trying to explain his witch doctor magic, and he says it's old. I don't like Aztec or Incan or something. I don't know.
That is Hans.
That's the best line.
It is easily.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah, honestly, the best just kind of whole series of words delivered by any character is like that scene from Danny, because everything Danny Trejo says in that scene is gold to some extent.
Yeah.
I have 3 things that we didn't talk about very, very quickly.
3
just 3 things. They're just real quick, very
gosh.
small. When the bad guys, the gang members, come into the cafe to try and kidnap Karen, they are intercepted by Seagal and Bren. Bren manages to fight off as many bad guys as Seagal does, but he doesn't break any of the tables or the furniture or anything on the counter. He doesn't wreck the cafe that is Karen's business. Seagal just destroys everything in a very Seagal manner. Just kind of goes to show what he thinks of himself.
And other people.
They straight up stole like the classic line from, I think, Bad Boys 2. When did that come out? Yeah. Yeah, that came out in 2003. That was well before this. They steal the classic line, "Shit just got real." I was like, you can't do that. You can't just do that in this movie. This movie does not have the street cred to steal that line.
No.
And then the last thing, the gangsters in their pickup truck that they threw Bren into the back of, there's a Jesus fish on the tailgate.
Nice. I think the only movie that successfully stole that line from Bad Boys 2 was Hot Fuzz.
Right.
By literally stealing
by
scene.
stealing the footage.
Like using it for
chef kiss.
It worked perfectly. It was I
they
could
just
talk
played
for
that
3
scene
hours
from another movie.
I could talk for hours and hours and hours, a full day even, just about how incredible of a movie, how perfect, top to bottom, beginning to end, how perfect of a movie Hot Fuzz is.
Well, maybe one day we could do like a Simon Pegg season. How about that?
Ooh, thought about Edgar Wright season. A Simon Pegg season could be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, but that was kind of Force of Execution.
That was Force of
That was a lot of
Execution.
not actually Force of Execution. Some of that was Force of Execution. Join us next week for a good man. A
Or
Force of
don't.
Execution 0, Force
Prequel.
of Execution Origins, starring Steven Seagal for some reason. Because
Although very likely not.
because our minds have
It
gone
is
to the
equally
ether. We are
possible.
trapped in a prison of our own making.
Yeah.
And you're in here with us. We're not trapped here with you. You're trapped here with us. Okay, thank you. Good night. Bye.
That means one of us has to die.
So we talked about this a couple weeks back. We wanted to get
Oh,
Hans's
yeah.
thoughts on this little kind of indie film. Maybe you've heard of it, called Titanic. And then after talking about Titanic, he said, wait. No, I
It's a
want to talk about
historical
that again.
drama.
The crystals
Not
in my
everybody's
mind
thing.
have recrystallized. I have new thoughts, new perspectives that he wanted to share.
Walked into the
So-
wrong mind palace.
Yeah,
Right,
he
got the
so
walked
address
in, he's
wrong.
like, I guess this
Just-
is the place.
To clarify on what Zach said, we have talked about this already. More recently to when we actually did watch Titanic. I rewatched Titanic with Zach and Sarah
Yeah.
for the first time in many years.
Uh-huh.
Gained, I think, a new perspective on the movie. We talked about it on the pod. And then almost immediately after, I realized, no, that was wrong. What I said, not right. Doesn't actually reflect my true feelings about this movie. So I asked kindly
Like
to
a
have it
true
cut
cinephile.
The
from
true
that
true.
episode so that we could re-record my thoughts, and then we forgot about it for like 5 weeks. So now
Now, 2 months after the fact, here we are.
we're going to talk Titanic. I'm going to repeat some of the things I said before. Like I said, I think I gained a new perspective on the film. I originally said that I thought that it was not much more than a cheesy romance drama that happened to take place on a sinking ship, and that I thought that it made light of a tragedy. I don't think that is the case. I think I was wrong. I think last time I watched this movie, I was probably a teenager, maybe even younger than that. So I
Gross.
didn't necessarily. I know, gross, right? Teenagers are gross. I know, I was one. I don't think I had the perspective that I have now. I like to think that I'm at least a slightly more well-adjusted person as an adult than I was as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very good movie. I loved the detail that was put into it that I did not have the mind to comprehend in the past. I had Zach and Sarah talking at me constantly throughout the film, telling me, Zach's pointing, telling me all of the little details that are historically accurate that James Cameron went through painstaking work to make happen in this movie. And to their credit, it works. It was a very good movie. It is most certainly still a cheesy romance that happens to take place on a sinking ship. I'm not going to back down from that, but fantastic movie. Now, let me clarify some things. I think Rose is the villain of this movie.
Hans.
Okay.
Be for real.
Okay. Elaborate.
So, the premise of the movie is
Can't just
the
leave it there.
whole... Throughout the whole movie, it is Rose retelling her experience of being on the Titanic, meeting Jack Dawson, falling in love with him, falling out of love with her abusive fiancé, and then taking his name when she gets to America and living like her dreams instead of being tied down to this jackass, right? Like, that's great. That whole story, everything about that, everything about the ship, all the retelling of all that junk, great, fantastic, loved it. The retelling of this is happening from a salvage ship that is trying to find her diamond. They have like investors that are pouring millions of dollars so that they can go down to the Titanic, bring a safe back up to the surface, open it up, and find a diamond that should be in that safe, tracked by like insurance records or something. And they find the safe, don't find the diamond, and that's how Rose like finds out about it. She's on a TV show or whatever, or on the news. And they fly her and all of her out to this ship and her granddaughter, I think. And then she regales
James Cameron's
them.
real life wife.
Yes. And then she regales them with this tale. And that, all good. That's great. Cool. I'm with it. I'm into it. That's fantastic. And then at the end of the movie, she takes the diamond out of her pocket and explains that, yes, she didn't tell them this. The people who have spent their entire lives finding the ship and trying to get down to the ship and finding investors to dig up treasures from this ship and following all of these insurance documents. She actually had it the whole time. It's sort of retconned that she found it in her pocket because he put it in his pocket and then gave her his coat. She had it the whole time and didn't tell anybody, and then just chucks it off the back of the boat and then goes to bed and maybe dies in her sleep. It's kind of shitty, right?
Okay.
Like,
question.
come on.
Not a debate, but a question. So
That's
one,
how debate starts, Zach.
not a debate, but you're wrong. Hear me out.
This is the cross-examination.
Cross-examination. I'm just a simple country lawyer. You know, I didn't go to no big city school or nothing, but I would like to call to the stand, Mr. Schreiner. Now, one smaller point. I can't do the southern accent this whole time. I would like to slightly tweak, rather than it's a cheesy rom-com that happens to be set on Titanic, I would like to posit that it is a cheesy Nora Ephron rom-com, which then halfway through, just like drastically, like sharp cut, like you leave the theater, walk into a different theater, of like a Jerry Bruckheimer disaster film, which is even funnier to me than a rom-com that's just set on Titanic. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Point made. Cool.
That's totally okay with me. The core, the meat and potatoes, the heart of this movie is phenomenal. It is a cheesy love story, and then yes, it turns into a disaster story. It's incredibly well done from start to finish. Yeah. No notes, no complaints, no improvements to be made. James Cameron's a genius, whatever, until he made Avatar, then he turned into an idiot.
Wait, you made the first Avatar is still okay, that's fine.
First Avatar is fine.
So yes, I'm on the same page.
So is that movie.
I'm on the same page so far. Continue.
Follow up. Second question. Bigger points.
Yeah.
This is a real life thing that's like the dives to the Titanic are somewhat controversial. Like, it is a real life thing that essentially, in the perspective of some people, I'm not saying this is necessarily my opinion, but under the perspectives of some people, if you're, no matter how much money and time and life that you've spent pouring into it, if you're funding an expedition to go to the Titanic to find treasures, you're essentially grave robbing.
Oh, absolutely.
So you say, oh, they spent all this time, they fly her out, and then she throws in the ocean, and she's so mean, she's the villain of them. is there any moral imperative? Do you actually believe there is a moral obligation that because they have put time and energy into this, they are owed the Heart of the Sea?
No, not at all.
It's hers.
It's hers. But
Yeah, okay.
but the point stands, like I understand it would not have been the romantic story that it is. I understand that.
Give this to your investors.
I understand that the Heart of the Sea is like a representation of her heart. It's a representation of her link to Jack. It's a representation of her throwing it off the ship is her officially getting rid of her abusive potential future husband, or I guess, letting go of Jack after she led a fulfilled life because he told her to do so. Like, I get that. I understand that what I'm suggesting would not have made as picturesque of an ending. However, these people flew her out to the boat with all of her and her dog and her granddaughter, and then she just doesn't tell them about it. They could have even, they could have made it so what's the guy, his name? He was in Twister. Bill Paxton. They could have made it so she tells, like, in secret, Bill Paxton, like, meets her out on the back of the ship where she's about to chuck it into the water, just like Jack met her on the back of the ship as she was about to jump off of the boat into the water, and is like, hey, what are you doing out here? And she shows him the diamond, and, like, he's like, oh my god, you had it all this time, and she explains what it means, and then, like, she still throws it off the back of the boat, and he's, like, cool with it or something. I don't know. I'm not the script doctor here. I'm just saying that was not the heartfelt ending for me that it should have been for me, because I know that's what it was intended, but because I'm a stupid chimp and my brain doesn't see things the way that most people see them, I did not like that. I thought that was
well, it's just so what you're so I think what you're saying is that she has the logical, the emotional, the moral, and like the narrative high ground to that what she does is correct, but she shouldn't have done it.
Yes. Thank you. Exactly.
Still bothered.
Like, it was completely right, like morally, legally, ethically, story-wise. But she should have given him the diamond.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you. Not necessarily that she had to give it to him. It was just that they should have known about it. The whole crew, like the whole point of the movie is that the crew is being regaled by this tale. There are specific hard cuts away from the story back to the crew who are like sitting on crates in a ring around this old woman.
Wasn't that story better than finding the Heart of the Sea?
No, listen to me. This is like these people. No, listen. These people are being
side here. Wait.
Okay.
I think it would have worked better if like everyone saw her drop it.
Yes.
And was okay with it. Yes. After hearing her story, they realized they don't need the Heart of the Sea. Like, they don't need that.
The Heart of the Sea.
Exactly.
It was the friends we made along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That's what I'm driving at here. These people, like, all were pulled away from their jobs for an entire day because they were so invested in this woman's story of her, like, last days on the Titanic. And understanding this man that there are no photos of and no one knows of and there's no historical documentation of, and he only lives in her memory, and like that's the whole big thing. And they're so engrossed in this story, and then none of them get the closure that she gets. That's frustrating to me.
Well, okay.
It could have worked.
I'm not going to say you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong, but I'm not going to say you're wrong. I guess my main... You're allowed to think that. I think that's valid. Does that make her the villain?
Yes.
You started this, but she's the villain.
I think that's a strong stance.
She's the villain. Who else is the villain of the movie?
The movie doesn't need a villain.
The rich asshole that hits his wife. What do you mean? Who's the villain? It's the iceberg, Hans. What do you want? Like, it's man's hubris. Like, what answer do you want?
Like, okay, maybe I was a little dramatic. Okay, I admit, maybe I was a tad bit dramatic in starting off with that, but I don't particularly care for the ending. I think it was, I think it could have been better than it was. I was not left satisfied by that ending.
I think I think Hans has something there to say that, like, it might have had like a bigger impact if everyone else on the ship who heard her story got the same closure that she did about it.
Exactly that. Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, now something that
Thank you for putting into words what I cannot.
because the last time we talked about this isn't going to make it to the air. I just want to make sure that my rant is included. I want to be very clear that when Hans is saying that Rose is the villain, he is not saying, because Hans and I talked about this a great deal. I want to make sure just everybody knows he's not saying Rose is the villain because she doesn't share the door. You can, bring in the external sources. You can talk about how Mythbusters tested it, but you don't even need that. Literally, if you watch the movie, if you open your eyes, if you watch the series of moving pictures and pay attention for more than 4 seconds between, eating your popcorn and slurping your big gulp, you would not have to endlessly repeat online, oh, they could have both fit on the door, oh, just let them on the door. The movie literally shows them both try to get on the door, and it doesn't work.
It does. It does a very good job of explaining why Jack has to freeze to death.
They show it, and it takes half a second. It's very clear. It's not a hidden little detail. It's
There's
quite
no plot
obvious.
holes.
More than 20 years later, we don't need to talk about how she should have let Jack on the door.
Yeah.
You're wrong if you think that. That's not a debate. You are just incorrect.
Go back
Rose
and
is
watch
not
the
the
movie
villain.
again.
Go back and watch the movie.
Get the same perspective that I just
You can
got.
skip ahead. You can even skip ahead at the last 30 minutes or whatever. He couldn't have fit on the door.
If you're gonna skip
Both.
ahead, watch the entire watch from the moment it hits the iceberg, because that whole sequence.
I mean, just watch the whole movie. It's coming out in 4K this year.
Oh, that's true. It is.
Oh.
Wait, fun fact.
I'll have
I'm
to
going
get
to
that on
whisper
4K.
this. I'm going to whisper this because this is a secret. It's a secret that I'm going to put in a publicly airing podcast that is available freely on the internet, because it is a secret for my wife. My wife does not listen to this podcast, but
Ooh.
my wife Sarah
Oh.
will be getting the Titanic Collector's Edition 4K, fancy collector's edition set that's coming out. It is
Nice.
pre-ordered. That will be under her Christmas tree this year.
Very
That's
nice.
so
And
sweet.
It's very
Aw.
funny that I can literally put that on here and she won't know because she does not listen to this. She's definitely not listening 10 minutes into the
Well,
post
hold on.
music stinger of an episode.
Well, hold on now though. I thought you were gonna play this for her to hear my reactions.
Well,
Not until after Christmas.
Yeah, after Christmas. She can listen to this December 26th
Yeah.
and be like, "Ooh, he knew the whole time. He pre-ordered it. He pre-ordered the 4K collector's edition, and I didn't even know.
Because he's a
Maybe I
good
should listen to his
husband. Look at
podcast."
That's a pretty good
Um,
gift. I like
Yeah,
it.
a good
I'm
gift.
pretty excited. It has, if you get the collector's edition, it has replica tickets and sheet music that the
Really?
there's some
super
cool. There's some cool.
That's
goodies
pretty
in there.
sick.
It is quite pricey, but there's some cool goodies in there.
Well,
Worth
that's
it.
neat.
So good movie. Just watch the whole thing, but stop repeating.
It is
because-
3 hours. I did not remember it being that long. It's a long movie.
Well, because it is. We've talked derogatorily about how some movies, these Steven Seagal movies, are just 2 movies. A movie starts and then all of a sudden it ends and you're in a different movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is Titanic is literally 2 movies, but in a good way. It is this rom-com. It is about her falling in love with this guy, and then it is boat is sinking, water is pouring in, everyone's dying.
But they're both linked by the same
Well, that's what I'm
entity,
saying.
the
That's what I'm
same
saying. It is
story.
two-
These
it is
Steven
2
Seagal
movies in a
movies
good way.
are 2 movies that are not linked in any way other than the
but
fact
that's
that
what
they
I mean.
both star
There's-
Seagal within the
there's-
same
This
hour and a
movie
half.
is just 2 movies crammed together derogatory. This movie is 2 movies crammed together positively. This isn't a positive end. It is done well. But it's funny because on this most recent rewatch, I kind of similarly had a reevaluation. It is funny how jarring that shift is, but how jarring it doesn't feel. Literally, the lighting changes, the cinematography changes, everything changes within a scene.
Yeah, and it's perfect.
It is a different movie, but it is done very well as one movie.
It is.
It's still a complete film.
Like I said, I there was so much both story detail and storytelling detail, environmental detail, everything about it that I just did not take in when I watched it as a teenager. That it's a phenomenal movie, start to finish. Everything about it's perfect. The CGI in parts of it has aged just a
There are some parts that are
little
very funny.
poorly.
And I'm really excited for the 4K Blu-ray just because it's going to be even more noticeable.
Yeah,
the
because
little janky, Gran Turismo, PS2, figures mopping the deck on the wide shots. I'm so excited to see those.
it's
in crisp
a
4K HDR.
It takes you out of the immersion just a little teeny tiny bit, and then you just kind of chuckle at it, and you dive right back in the next scene.
Although, so we saw it when it came out in theaters, this past Valentine's Day for the 3D re-release. The really funny thing with the 3D re-release is normally the special effects of the iceberg don't stick out. But when you watch it in 3D, it looks like, when you're on one of those Universal Studios, the rides that have 3D images and also like practical stuff.
Yeah.
Like there'll be a screen in front of you that like shows the thing you crash into, and then like, you know, the seat you're sitting on whips, or like you crash into a virtual taxi and it whips around and there's like a real taxi cab there that's like busted and like in the wall.
Yeah.
It feels like that, having like the iceberg layer and then like the iceberg stuff that comes and crashes on the deck. It felt like I was on like some kind of weird like Universal like, you know, theme park ride. It was very funny. And you don't get that quite as much when it's not in 3D. In like 3D, it was like super apparent. Like it literally just looks like they had like a rear projection screen of like the iceberg, and then like there's some extras off screen just like chucking like ice cubes, like chunks of ice onto the deck.
Well, like a
But it's very
movie
charming.
from, you know, that time period.
Oh no, this is the thing. There are special effects that like have aged, and you can see the age, but you're like, but you look so much better older. You are a fine wine. You are a Marissa Tomei. Like you only get better with age, versus, you know, a Steven Seagal movie.
Which was aged when it came out.
This has nothing to do with anything we were just talking about, but last week, well, not last week, week before last, doesn't matter. I have never seen the extended editions of any of the Lord of the Rings movies, and like never. And I got the full set on 4K Blu-ray, and it comes with 9 discs in this box set. You get the theatrical cut, 1 disc per movie, and then the extended cuts, 2 discs per movie. Like it stops in the middle of the movie and says the story continues on disc 2, and you have to go swap it out.
Good.
It's a surreal experience having to do that again. Weird. Anyway,
VHS.
anyway,
so good.
First of all, phenomenal movies, and the extended cuts, outstanding, just perfect in every single way. Those movies have held up like remarkably well,
incredibly well,
and I think so much of that is because there's so little CGI in it. There's obviously plenty of CGI in those movies, but compared to what you get from like The Hobbit, which I've seen at least more recently, it's night and day. The amount of like actual real world shots that just hold up because they're real world shots of New Zealand, I think it is, right?
Have you watched some of the behind the scenes stuff? So like when they're designing the orc armor, like if you know the background lore, you can tell like what orc clan each individual background stunt actor is in based on like the shape of the helmets and like the gorgets, and like it's wild. Because they had a team of people that throughout the entire production of the movies just sat in a back room and twisted steel rings to make ring mail.
Mm-hmm.
Like for years. That's all they did. To make all the armor that they would need for the movie. And it was all handmade real chainmail.
And it was like, I don't know. They're like, you know, when the cave troll comes in when they're in Moria, and when there are a couple instances of like really high shots of like the tree ants and stuff that they had to CGI people in there, and you can tell that it hasn't aged so well. But it's the same thing. Like those are so few and far between of real location shots that those movies have held up so perfectly that they're phenomenal.
Yeah. Just really, really excellent movies. Although, so I'm in a weird camp on the extended editions. I say, I love the extended editions. I do think they're better than the theatrical cut. If you've already seen the theatrical cut.
Yes. Because they add in some stuff that is good context. And there was some other stuff in there that I was like, that's weird. Didn't really realize that was going on. That didn't really make sense.
And all of that is just like stuff from the books.
I'm actually kind of disappointed. I was ready for you to come in with like a spicy hot take, like, you know, the extended cuts. I'm like, no, actually that makes sense. Like,
like if you have not seen these movies at all before, watch the theatrical cuts your first time, and then like
a few months later, 3 songs in and be like, what's going on?
Yeah, you get like this whole like 20-minute sequence with Merry and Pippin in Fangorn Forest, like fighting over Entwater, and it's funny.
Which, to be fair, it's great. It's great.
It's great. It has nothing to do with the rest of the story. It's a total aside. There is some stuff that gets cut. I'm not really sure why. Like, some of the Saruman stuff got cut.
His death.
Yeah,
his death isn't in the theatrical cut.
He just like stopped. Like, he just doesn't show up again.
He's like the Ents wreck his whole and he's backed into the tower and
then you
that's
just
the
never
last
see him
I
again.
saw of him ever.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching the movies and he what's his name, Wormtongue, is up on the top of the tower with him and he insults him and throws him back and then Wormtongue stabs Saruman in the back and he falls and is impaled on this wheel that just like then slowly spins and his body gets like dunked in the water below and then he's gone. Like that's a huge detail. And they just don't, that's just not in the theatrical version.
Like one of the main villains of the first movie.
Yeah.
So
wild.
To end the Steven Seagal podcast.
Oh,
buy
this
physical
should
media.
not be included in that.
Bump, bump,
Hey,
bump.
This should be cut from that hard cut.
Buy physical media. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on Titanicons. We appreciate it.
Bump, bump, bump.
I rest my case. That cross-examination was still going on the whole time, by the way. I rest my case now.
Okay.
You may leave the stand. Objection. Okay.
I think
dismissed.
I think we sort of landed. Oh, I banged into my mic. I think we sort of landed in a good spot. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lord of the Rings.
It-
In Middle Earth.
Yeah, on one pod to rule them all, the Lord of the Rings
And the
podcast
world of
that
Arda.
surely doesn't exist already. Like, we got to be the first. To talk
We were
about
in
these
the land of
movies.
Mordor where the shadows lie, where the Shadow Man lives.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my recording.
Yeah, I'm stopping my recording.
All right.